All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on with our availabilities. This morning we are now joined by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford. Joey, you're in the round of 8 looking to advance to the championship. For a lot of discussion about last year's events here, but you've reinforced you're focused on winning this race. Talk about how much a win here would help the team with an extra 2 weeks to prepare for Homestead.
Winning here in Martinsville might be the biggest win of the year. Might be what wins you a championship if you think about it. Being in this round of 8, if you win, obviously you're going to Homestead. You're not finishing worse than 4th in points, and it gives you the ability to think about nothing but Homestead for 2 weeks when other teams have to think about the next 2 races to get themselves in, right? Because you got to get there before you can win the championship. So I think it's a pretty big advantage to win this one. This is a tough race, obviously. We've yet to win here. We've come close a few times, so we'll just keep doing what we know how to do, and we'll keep making constant progress at this racetrack as a 22 team. So I'm excited about that, and we'll get out there and see what we're made out of in a little bit.
All right, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. We'll start over here on the left.
Jonathan Merriman, NASCAR.com. Joey, can you speak to the new NASCAR participation guidelines? You've run 13 Xfinity Series races this year. How will those guidelines moving forward affect you as a driver and possibly affect Team Penske's Xfinity program?
It affects them a lot. It affects the sport a lot. As a race car driver, I want to race all the time. So if I put my race car driver hat on, I think, well, man, this kind of stinks. As I want to drive. But I think from kind of taking that hat off and looking at it more from a global view, I understand it. I get why we're doing that. I think it's important to have Cup racers out there because I think growing up as a young race car driver, I learned that you only get better when you race against people that are better than you. And I think this has the ability to give young drivers that and young crew chiefs coming up through the Xfinity Series. So I think it gives them the ability to work with Cup drivers and things like that. So I think that's good that they have that mix in there. But, at the same time, you also want to have the opportunity for young drivers to have the opportunity to get into the seat and drive it at some point. I get that. And if you look at it from the business end, it's no secret that, a lot of sponsors want to have the big name drivers in there. They want to have Sprint Cup racers that can go out there and are proven winners. So that's definitely going to change the game quite a bit from the business side of our sport. So, for me, I've run 13 races this year or so. So it's not going to change my schedule a whole bunch. But for guys like Kyle and whatnot, it's going to change quite a bit. So we'll kind of have to wait and kind of see how that goes. But and then obviously not racing through the chase is probably important. I think that's it kind of makes sense when their chase starts. I get that, and obviously Homestead. But and it also still gives the drivers that are younger with less than 5 years experience have the ability to go out there and race as much as they want. Right? Am I right about that? So it's probably a good thing for that. So. Unfortunately, I've been racing longer than 5 years, so I don't get to do that. So I get it. It makes sense, and it's a long answer to that, but it makes sense. As a race car driver, I just want to race, and I kind of hate that I don't have the ability to race as much as I'd like, but I understand why this rule is in place.
All right, we'll go to Jeff Gluck, and then right behind him.
When you roll back in here, how much do you think about what happened last year?
Man, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get this question. Who'd have seen that one coming, huh? Way to step outside the box. I honestly, you're never going to erase it from your mind, right? Because I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say that. But I will say I don't focus on it. If I focus on it, that's a distraction of what my main goal is, which is to win, not think about what happened last year. If I can use it to motivate me, I'm going to use that to help me win. But that's going to be it.
All right, we'll go right here behind Jeff.
Chad Hall, BTW 21. Joey, big announcement here about lights coming in Martinsville, man. Your thought about maybe racing here under the lights?
Cool. I think that's neat. You know, Martinsville is the most grassroots racetrack that we come to, right? It's obviously has a lot of history at this track, but we all grew up racing at tracks like this. We all grew up racing, you know, paved short track ovals, and you know, so it brings you kind of back to home. Well, a lot of those races were always Saturday night races, you know, when you had the lights on, and it's just how it was. So I think racing a night race at Martinsville would be super cool. You know, obviously you have the sparks, and you have, you know, it's plenty of bumping and banging as there is, but I think having a race at night, it's just kind of adds something to that. It's just pretty cool. So it's going to change the race some, you know, as I think this track's pretty sensitive to heat and how it rubbers up. When you don't have the sun on it, it's not going to rubber up as much. So depending on, I guess, when the race is and the temperature of it during the day, I think will have an effect on that. But hey, night racing's cool to me.
All right, we'll go to Jim Utter, and then Greg and Bob.
Jim Utter, motorsport.com. You talked at the beginning about how important it could be if you were to win this race, but you hadn't yet in this career. And you were leading last year at the time of that incident, and you won 3 straight poles here, I believe. Do you feel you have now come to a point where that is definitely a possibility for you guys, that you've gotten good enough where that can happen?
Oh, for sure. I think we really do think, just because we haven't won here yet, we don't look at it as a bad racetrack for us. It's been a pretty good racetrack for us. We just haven't broke through for the victory and gotten that clock yet. So really would like to have that thing. It looks super cool. But I think this is a good track for us. Obviously, qualifying has been very good for us. So, you know, we have that part figured out. And as far as the rest of the race, you know, we've been good on the long runs and we've been good on the short runs, but we haven't put it all together at the same time. And I think that's what it's going to take. So we've been close before. So we'll just keep counting, like I said, working on that. We really work off our notes here. This track is one of those tracks that once you kind of figure it out and what it is, it seems like that just continues every time you're here. And that's why I think you see a lot of the people here with so many wins. You know, so many drivers that have, you know, a ton of wins here at this racetrack, because I think once you get it, you get it. I don't think the track changes much that, you know, you're looking for something completely different. So we're just trying to hone in on what that is, and we've made steady progress at that.
All right, we'll go to Greg and then Bob.
Hey, Joey, Greg Engel, Cupscene.com. You talked about how this is a historic racetrack, and obviously it's one of NASCAR's oldest. You're still a relatively young guy, but how cognizant were you of NASCAR history when you came into the sport as opposed to now? And do you think it's important for fans to understand the history of the sport?
That's a great question. You know, for me, you know, I was, you know, 18 when I first came into this thing, and you know, I probably knew the basics of NASCAR history, maybe not into as much detail. And I think, you know, obviously as you're around it, you learn more. You talk to some of the drivers that used to race then. You kind of hear their stories, and you learn more about that stuff. And I think since then as well, there's been a lot of great specials that they've put on TV. That NASCAR and a lot of the media groups here do a great job on putting together some really cool historic features, which I think helps us all kind of promote about that, learn about that, because I think it's important to learn about the history of our sport. You know, I mean, you can look around here, you can look at some of these pictures and you think how awesome it is, but you know, we're all here for a reason, and a lot of it's because of the pioneers of our sport. And we owe them something. We owe them at least a handshake and say thank you for building what we see here today. Thanks.
All right, we'll go to Bob Pockris.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. You talk about not focusing on last year. Is it any easier or more difficult, like going into turn 1, you know, when you go by there to not to think about or not think about it, compared to, let's say, like Dover, the backstretch where you had, you know, the big flip? I mean, is it the same type of thing, or is it more difficult either place?
I honestly don't think about it at either racetrack. If I'm thinking about that as I'm turning into turn 1, I'm probably going to hit the wall just like that, because that'd be pretty distracted. This track can sneak up and bite you pretty quick, and you have to just be focused in. You know, it's not on that. I could promise you, focused in on how to go fast, and I wouldn't think about that the whole time I'm out there. I promise you that.
All right, we'll finish up with Barry and Dustin Long.
Barry Richmond, Piedmont Broadcasting, WAKG. You know, last week, I think everybody took a collective deep breath after Talladega. Is there any other track in the chase that may present a challenge for the drivers in general, or you specifically, that you focus on?
Yeah, every one of them becomes very, very important in the chase, right? And we've seen that last round that, we were fortunate enough to get through the round with having a bad race in Charlotte. I don't think you're getting away with that again. We got lucky through that to be able to have a good run at Kansas and then winning ultimately in Talladega to get us through. So this round there's only 4 that get through, and you have the best 8 teams left. So really making a mistake or having a bad race is really hard to overcome unless you win in this round. So each race becomes ultra important, to go out there and make it happen. And like I said earlier, Martinsville is probably the most important if you can win here, because you have 2 weeks to prep for Homestead.
All right, we'll finish up with Dustin Long.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Joey, the beauty of sports is before any event, everybody's an expert and can predict what's going to happen. That being said, a lot of people, when they look at this round, they look at Jimmy Johnson should advance to Homestead based on his success at these tracks. A lot of people say Kevin Harvick should advance because if he even has problems, he's got Phoenix in his back pocket. If that were to play out, in essence, that leaves 2 spots for 6 drivers. Why do you feel like you can be one of those, can fill one of those spots? Why you and your team can fill that spot?
It's a good question. Our sport, you can go off of numbers as much as you want, and they're there for a reason. But, what you've done in the past doesn't, predict what's going to happen in the future as much as you think in the sport. So, or you can't rely on that at least for a good finish. So you never know what's going to happen. Our race team, I feel like, is very strong, and we're very consistent and level-headed. And I think that is something that, really plays into our favor when you come to races like this. I think a lot of times you add this chase pressure. We talk about pressure a lot in the chase, and a lot of teams crack under it. I believe the 22 team thrives under it. I think we're excited about that, and I think that's something that makes us strong. These are 3 good racetracks for us as well. We've won at Texas before. We've come close here. Phoenix, we've been consistently in the top 5. So, I think there are 3 good racetracks to help us get to the next round. And honestly, we don't think about what other teams have and what makes them, we think about what makes them strong at each track, but not the fact that, we can't go out there and beat them. We know we can do that. We know we can come out here and we can win all 3 of these races. So we know we can do that. We'll go out there and try to. With that attitude, you have to have an attitude like that, unless you shouldn't even strap into the seat.
All right, thanks, Joey, and good luck this weekend.
All right, great. Thank you, guys.